I wanted to do this introduction because John Perry Barlow is an old personal friend of mine, but also a great friend of Personal Democracy Forum. He was the first person who accepted our invitation to come speak when we did our first PdF, and it gave me the confidence to actually start this conference. And if it wasn't for him, I don't think we would exist, because he told me that he wanted to do it because he thought this conversation was important, and he told me I was the right person to help start it. So he's back with us again to wrap up from this morning. Mika said yesterday at an event we were at that it's really important to respect your elders. I can't think of anybody I respect more than John Perry Barlow. Please welcome him to our stage again.
That's very kind. No, that's okay. I'll stand. Back's kind of shot, but I'll stand up. First of all, Scott, what you said, dude, I mean, really, honestly, 25 years ago, I attached a suction cup to a telephone receiver and found myself in an environment that was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. I ran across people like Howard Rheingold there, and he's here now. But there weren't very many people there. But there was a there, it felt like. And it also felt like that was going to be a very, very big there. A vast room in which all of humanity might eventually gather and would likely run into each other in all kinds of unexpected and difficult ways that would change politics, would change the very notion of what it was to be human. I don't see any reason to feel differently about it at this stage of the game. I still believe, as I believed then, that the internet was the most powerful technological event since the capture of fire. And people have made fun of that statement. I will stick by it. Because what it is enabling is something, Meetup is precisely part of what we're talking about here. It is enabling the possibility of collective human thought to finally assemble itself and become the mind that we can all be together. Now, the road to that point was predictably going to be difficult, and it is being difficult. And it's not going to be something that takes place overnight. 5 years after I attached the suction cup to the phone, Mitch Kapor and I started an organization called the Electronic Frontier Foundation. And we didn't call it the Electronic Freedom Foundation, which many others have called it repeatedly since. We called it the Electronic Frontier Foundation because we knew that we would always be on the frontier. That for our lifetimes and probably lifetimes of many generations to follow us, this would be such a metamorphic zone. And things would be taking place there so continuously that it was going to require constant resettlement, reinvention, and renewal. But we could see from the beginning that one of the things that was going to happen was that it was going to fundamentally question practically every system of authority that had been dominant up to that point, certainly in the northern world. For 2,000 years, there had been this great white column with God on top and you on the bottom. And nobody was in a position to ask very many questions along the way in that column. And people were in a very good position to define what people could know all the way along. There was not yet even the dream that we could one day convey to everybody in humanity the right to know, which I think we are on the brink of being able to do. That we can give everybody, no matter where they are on this planet, the opportunity to answer whatever curiosity might motivate them and know as much about anything as is presently known by human beings. This is not a crazy dream. It is, unfortunately, though, a dream that has to be fought for continuously and re-won all the time, and is changing everything about politics as it goes along. The political process, and I learned about politics in my own home state of Wyoming, where you kind of had to get along with everybody because there were only 500,000 of you to begin with, and you needed each other, and you had to meet up a lot, and you had to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. And all politics felt local in a way that I think they can start to feel local again, and must, because what's happened now, and I think this is a truly important change that's already taken place, is that when Obama got elected by all those small donors, it fundamentally changed the rules in American politics. Now, I grant you, it was not the second coming. It was not everything is better overnight. But it made it possible to see a future where it wasn't simply a matter of money that defined who won these things or where that money came from. That the government could finally start belonging to the people eventually. Now, there are a lot of people in this room that are extremely disappointed with Obama. I find it distressing that he doesn't get more credit for showing dignity to the extent that he has under unbelievably difficult circumstances, and never losing his cool and going on and fighting an uphill battle with a political system that is broken partly because of the internet. The internet has created a set of conditions that make it practically impossible to govern something the size of a nation state. We're going to be going back to the city-state. The city-state will have the biggest renaissance since the Renaissance because the nation-state is ungovernably information-rich. There is too much stuff going into Washington for it to handle. It's in connection crash, and it's fibrillating at every conceivable level. And I think to blame the president for that is misplaced. What has to happen is for us to learn how to make government, as we were able to raise money in small donations using the internet and organize in little meetup groups all over the place and create real powerful campaign organizations. We have to start governing from there as well. And the problem is that as soon as the president got to the White House, the usual suspects moved right in with him. And there was still, you've only got like 2,600 political appointees in the whole federal government. That's a very thin veneer. And there had been plenty of people who had established systems of authority and power and fiefdoms of one sort or another that they were not eager to give up. And there was plenty of money that was already getting channeled in ways that didn't want to stop being channeled. There is a circle of fat around the Beltway that is unbelievably thick. At one point, I knew a fellow who was basically the CFO of the Department of Homeland Security. He happened to be a deadhead, oddly enough. And so we were having dinner together. And he said that he was going to quit. And I said, well, why would you do that? I mean, you're exactly the kind of person that we need in your position. You're smart, you're motivated, you're hardworking. And he said, yeah, but I can't do my job. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, this was several years ago. He said, you spent a lot of time in New Orleans. How much money do you think has actually hit the ground in New Orleans, from federal funds? And I said, well, it looks like $1.98 a lot of the time. I mean, not too much. He said, no, seriously. And I said, well, maybe $2 billion, $3 billion that I can sort of see. And he said, you know how much money we've sent that direction? I said, no. At that point, he said, $89 billion. And I said, well, where to go? And he said, the problem is that I don't know. I don't think most of it made it past the Beltway. So this is why we have to use those same mechanisms of governing from the bottom that we used to campaign from the bottom when we created this new way of electing a president. We can no longer try to run this country from the center. We have to run it just as the internet is run, from the edges. We have to learn how to take responsibility for ourselves and the projects that need to get done, and use these tools that we're being given here to organize ourselves and meet government coming up at it, rather than expecting it to shower us with things that it can no longer deliver because it has become unmanageably difficult to do. So I leave you with this thought. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities still before us. I have always been a techno-utopian. I don't mind being called that now. I see that there are also ugly things going on. I mean, talk about don't be evil. I swear. I mean, Eli's demonstration of what's going on at Google at the moment, and the capacity to, control human thought. I mean, it makes the Catholic Church jealous, I'll bet. Wish they'd thought of that. So there are a lot of these battles that will have to be fought, and we cannot give them up. But we have to start out by reinventing politics that starts at the edge, that uses the internet for the things that it can be used, and gives everybody the access to knowledge and the opportunity to know, and empowers democracy with the truth. You folks in this room have the capacity to be some of the greatest ancestors anybody ever had. So I hope you will go out and do that.